Terrifier 3 is directed by Damien Leone and is the third installment in the Terrifier franchise. The Terrifier movies have really taken off in the last few years, with their indie style, extreme shock value, incredible special effects, and of course, the birth of a new horror icon in Art the Clown, a character who manages to walk the line between adorable and horrifying beautifully. My fiance and I saw Terrifier 2 in the theater a couple Halloweens back, and we had an absolute blast, so I was very excited for this third one. Now, to prepare, I decided to go back and watch the other movies in the series. So before I give you my thoughts on 3, let me run through those real quick. Starting with the movie that officially gave Art his start, All Hallows Eve, released in 2013. An anthology about a babysitter who finds a haunted VHS tape in her kid's trick-or-treat bag and decides to watch it. The tape features 3 creepy short films with Art as the connecting figure, and the whole time they're left to wonder if the clown in the movie is real or not. This one was just alright. The shorts are kind of random, the acting is pretty laughably bad, but I don't know if that was intentional. And this version of Art is a far cry from the one we see in the movies. He's not even played by the same actor. The closest he comes to the Art we know and love is in the third short, but the rest of it, he's just kind of there. The music is pretty good and the makeup and effects are still great. It's just the movie itself was just kind of standard. 3 out of 5. Next up is Terrifier, released in 2016. An hour and 24 minutes of absolute brutality, and the true beginning of Art the Clown, now played by David Howard Thornton. The story is pretty basic, starting off with 2 girls who are out drunk after a party, who are stalked and eventually killed by Art the Clown, with more victims coming in to scope out the situation. But the story and characters are kinda secondary in this movie. You're here to see a bunch of people be murdered in increasingly brutal and sadistically creative ways, you sick bastard. Because of the nature of how this movie is structured and how it's basically an hour-long third act, it can get kind of exhausting. But the makeup effects, the cinematography, the music, and the genuine uneasiness keeps you engaged throughout most of it. It's also a very mean film. Art is a fucking psycho. He will slice off your skin and wear it around like a party dress. He is ruthless and sadistic, and while there are shades of the fun-loving troll that is more prominent in the second movie, they are very, very light. Not everything about the movie works. The acting and dialogue are kind of stilted in parts, and it does have moments that drag a bit. But I can see why this became a cult classic. It was a gory good time that would only get better from here. 3.5 out of 5. Next up is Terrifier 2, which released wide in 2022. This is the moment where everything about this series became bigger. The budget was bigger, the kills were more intense, the runtime was longer, and for the first time in this series, the movie focused its attention on building a story and fleshing out its characters rather than just making an hour-long climax. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one since I reviewed it in a catch-up review a couple years ago, but long story short, this movie was a hell of a lot of fun. Like I said, me and my fiance saw it on Halloween night without having seen the other movies, and we had a blast. The kills were grotesquely creative without feeling exploitative. Art the Clown finally felt like a fully rounded character, being menacing and brutal, but also kind of hilariously endearing. And the story, while very simple, was still very engaging. They actually get you to care about our leads so that by the end, you want to see them escape. The fact that it manages to be as huge as it is while still retaining that indie feel to it is very impressive. And this is the moment where the Terrifier movies truly became classics. 4 out of 5. And at last we arrive at Terrifier 3, set 5 years after the second one and taking place at Christmas time. And right off the bat, it's a really great follow-up. While I think the second one is definitely better, this movie doesn't miss a beat and delivers on everything you've come to expect from this series at this point. The story does a really good job in not only expanding on Art's lore, but also exploring Sienna's trauma in the aftermath of the previous. The acting across the board is great, with Lauren Levera getting a lot of great moments to chew on. Speaking of chewing on stuff, the kills in this movie are just as gruesome, just as mean, and just as over the top as you've come to expect from this series. Art the Clown is one of the most stressful characters to watch on screen because he can bounce back and forth between funny and adorable to horrifically brutal in a matter of seconds. And what I kind of respect about Art is that he well and truly does not give a single fuck. Typically with slasher villains, no matter how brutal they seem, there is still a line that they can't or won't cross, like killing kids, for example. Terrifier 3 fucking swan dives over that line and presents 2 blood-soaked middle fingers right in your face. Admittedly, there is a bit of restraint in the editing, and there are a lot of surprisingly major deaths that happen off-screen, but they don't skip out on all that juicy gore. Speaking on the editing, I do think the movie has some slight pacing issues, and it's a similar problem as the second movie, but where the second movie lets scenes linger a bit too long, this movie I felt cut scenes a bit too short. Also, whereas the second movie reaches its climax pretty naturally, this one kinda caught me off guard, like, oh, we're here already? It still led to an epic showdown with Art and Vicky that perfectly sets up for the fourth movie. Overall, Terrifier 3 was yet another great installment in this franchise. It had a compelling story, great performances, gut-wrenching kills, and incredible special effects. Damien Leone has crafted another banger, and I can't wait to see how this madman wraps it all up in the fourth film. I'd give it a 4 out of 5.